Good day to you. My name is Tony Ballinger from the Fighting Men of Rhodesia YouTube series. Today I've got Sarel Coetzee from the South African Defence Force, and he was a gunner in Olifant tanks in the war in Angola. And I'm really looking forward to his talk. It sounds fantastic. I think his nickname is the Tank Ace, and he comes to us courtesy of Coetzee from the Legacy Conversation channel in South Africa. So wonderful to see you. Welcome on board.
Thank you, Tony. It's a privilege to speak to you. You mentioned the term tank ace. That's actually a title that you get when you take out at least 5 enemy tanks, and I believe I'm one of only 1 or 2 guys who managed to do that. But as I've told a lot of people that I'm talking to. I've taken out 5 Russian tanks, but it was no achievement because it was all under 200 meters, all 5 of them. So it was easy shots, but to live through that and to survive is amazing grace.
Believe you me, I'm
Yeah.
going to be unpicking your brain. I want every molecule of experience through that whole process. But before we go to that, which would kind of short circuit the whole talk, give us an overview of where you come from, Sarel, who your parents were, where you went to school, how you got into the military, and eventually leading up to this battle or battles.
Well, I was raised on a farm in the Eastern Free State, a town called Harrismith. And my dad was a part-time farmer, and I went to school in Harrismith. And as you know, you get your collar papers in standard 8 or grade 10 now these days. You had at our stage we could say where we wanted to go. And a friend of mine's dad were a major in the Panzer Corps, and he showed me books about the different Panzer vehicles, and I saw a picture of Olifant, the Centurion tank, and I've told him, yes, I would like to shoot with one of these ones. And I've ticked that I wanted to go to Bloemfontein, to Panzer School in Bloemfontein, and but I still had to complete 2 more years in school. So at the end of matric, we got our second collar papers, and I was sent to Bloemfontein to 1 SSB, and January 87, I started my military national service in 1 SSB. And there, the guys from Panzer School came down, and they've asked who want to go to Panzer School to be get their training on the Olifant tanks. And immediately I put up my hand. And luckily, I was lucky to get into that group, and we've moved up to Panzer School in Bloemfontein, and we've started our 3 months basic training. And unfortunately, at the end of my basic training, I got shunts, and I didn't mention it because it was near the by going to see who's going where, and who's going to get training, and who's going to be clerks and cooks. And so I kept quiet about the shins, and but it developed into stress fractures. And at the end of basics, I couldn't walk or run anymore. And they sent me to hospital, and well, I was put on light duty. And after that, I had to go on orders at the Captain van Niekerk both years, and he asked me a question if I want to become a clerk or a cook. And I've told him that that wasn't one of my plans, and I've told him that I'm here on a mission, and it's my absolute dream to be trained as a tank gunner, and he can't just crush that dream. And he told me it's very hard and difficult training, that he can't put a guy with 2 broken legs on that training. And I've told him, well, the first phase of training is more of a theory. So at the time we start with the physical training, I'll be ready, fit and ready again. And I made him a promise that I'll be the best tank gunner that he will ever train. And luckily he gave me a chance. So I was very happy to start training as a tank gunner.
So tell us about that training. I know it was just theoretical to begin with, but what did it involve, Sarel?
Yeah, well, the theoretical training with, and because I've made him the promise and he told me that one fault and I'm of the course, I learned the book knowledge very well. And I think that helped me a lot. And from there, you move to the miniature shooting range, where they mount .22s on the barrels of the tanks, and you start shooting, getting used to the commands and the way you move your barrel and so on with a .22, and you start shooting at small model armored vehicles. Some of them were even moving, so they dragged them on pieces of string and so on. So it was quite exciting for a young person like me to do that. And then we moved to a place called the Brug, and just outside of Bloemfontein in Free State. And you start with 84 millimeter shells. So it's cheaper to start training with that. Start shooting with that, and then later on you only start shooting with 105 rounds.
So tell us, Sarel, before we go any further, can you tell us the crew makeup of an Oliphant tank? How many men were in the tank, and where did they sit in relation to what they had to do?
Oh, well, you get your tower is fitting in the hull of a tank. Now, tank is weighing 56 tons. The tower alone is about 12 tons, and 3 of us sits in the tower. So you get your gunner on the right hand bottom side of the tower, and just at the back of the gunner, your spawn Bev, team Bev will sit, and on the left hand side, the bigger part of the tower, at the left hand side of the cannon, is your loader, and in the hull, your driver sit basically on the front right hand side of the hull. There's four crew members on a Olifantank, and yeah, you work in a squadron, and the squadron is basically 9 tanks, with a troop of 3 each, and then you also get your commander tank. So it's basically 10 tanks with a spare tank, where normally your 2IB will move in to it. So it's 3 troops with 3 tanks each, with a lieutenant who's the troop commander over 3 tanks, and normally your squadron commander would be a captain or major.
I believe by that stage the Oliphant tank had been completely re-armored and upgraded with all sorts of night sights and other modern equipment. I did read that it compared favorably with the American M1 Abrams tank by the time it was completed. When you started using them, were they still in the depleted version or the upgraded version?
No, they were upgraded. So we have a very nice stabilizing system on it that worked quite well. So especially if we look at the T55 we were up against, we had very good. It was a very good tank to fight in.
Yeah, and the powertrain, the engine, and all that was made locally, or I did read somewhere that some Australian units were fitted in there. Do you know much about the engines and where they were made?
If I remember correctly, and now it's longer than 50 years ago, I think it was Rolls-Royce engines that the tank was fitted with. Yeah, and it had turbos on it. I still remember the sounds of the turbos. So yeah, the tank could reach and speed of about, I think, 43 kilometers on flat surface. But and it used about 14. Okay, it could reach no 7. It used 7 liters per kilometer. Yeah, 7 liters per kilometer.
Jeez.
And in that sand in Angola, it used about 14 liters per kilometer.
Good Lord. So you needed a massive Bowser being towed behind you almost.
It had a diesel tank of, I think, 1,200 liters. Yeah.
And tell me about the main gunners. 105 millimeter, was that rifled or smooth bore?
No, it's rifled.
Rifled. Okay,
Yeah.
I think smooth bore came in later for some reason.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And you had a coaxial machine gun within the...
Coax is 7.62 Browning.
Yeah.
I had a little foot pedal where I could action the Browning next to the 105 cannon. It was a really nice weapon to use.
And you'd have something mounted on top for the commander?
Yeah, the commander also had a 7.62 Browning. But in Angola, it didn't went well with the trees and stuff. So it was packed away very fast. And in the contact situations, also you couldn't open the hatch at the top.
Tell me what you could see through your eyesight when you're aiming for an object. What could you see?
Yeah, better than the driver. But it had a periscope, and so I could see quite clearly because the periscope was sitting on top of the tower, and I had to move the tower around to see what I want to see. It was very nerve-wracking in Angola because there was a lot of bush and trees involved, so not ideal for tank war.
So you would move the turret with foot pedals or something like that, would you?
No. I had a joystick in my hand, and with that I moved the turret.
Wow. So I can imagine in the heat of the moment, you've got to try and get the distance. You got to move that joystick left or right. You might have a tree coming to bash in the front. It sounds like a lot going on. And from other interviews and even my own experience, the only way to overcome making a balls up in action is to have training, lots of training. Is that what they did with you guys? Lots and lots of training.
Yeah, I think if I look back now, training saved our lives, and adaptability, because we had to adapt for the situation in Angola, because normally, we were trained to fight at distances of 1.2 kilometers to 3.5 kilometers. And in Angola, it was a whole different story. So there wasn't time to set your can't remember what you call your distance wheel. So you will set it on an average of 200 or 300 meters and leave it there. So we had to shorten our commands. Otherwise, we would have been dead by now.
I remember firing a 106 anti-tank gun, and you look at right angles into this eyepiece, then it brings up the same sort of graduated scope with stuff going like that, and you're supposed to fit the enemy vehicle into that up to the correct crosshair. But even in peacetime with no threat, nothing going to bash me on the head, I'll still miss the target. I just can't imagine what it's like to hit a moving target, or with all of this going on in your head. But before we get to the actual battle, can you tell me, the tank squadrons in South Africa, are they completely autonomous from battalions and divisions, or do they always work with a group and stay with them?
We've in Angola, we've worked with Foresight, and then later on with 61 Mech. So we moved between different fighting groups as was needed. Yeah.
And I believe the South African tank numbers were about 250 tanks at that time. Is that correct?
That I don't know.
Okay.
Well, 10, 13. I'm not sure if we had that much tanks. Can be, but yeah.
I did see that number somewhere. But anyway, lovely so far. We've got a hang of what you did and how you trained. Can you tell us how you got up into Angola and what actually happened in this battle or series of battles, Sarel?
Yeah, well, we've called up our like we call them, the old manne, the guys who were in their second year in Panzer School, and they needed some tank gunners to join them. And my lieutenant that I've worked with in Angola, they said he must choose a tank gunner, and he decided he's going to take me with. I wasn't finished with training at that stage, because the IPFS round, we only got training on that, or supposed to get training on that on Luatla, because we couldn't fire with those rounds on the brug. And the FS round, it's basically a fin stabilized metal round that was the round that we used the most in Angola. So I went up with I was in with training in F squadron, and I went up with E squadron to Angola, and I only had basically two chances to fire with a FS round in Angola, just to see if my cannon is fine. We put some toilet paper around trees and fire on that. And
Sarel,
yes,
am I correct in saying that round was a sabot round? It wasn't a heat round. It wasn't high explosive anti-tank.
no,
It actually fired out a dart, so it was a kinetic round.
yes.
Okay.
It looks like a big dart with the fins at the back.
It's got a guiding sheath either side of the dart that gets it through the barrel. Then they fly off, and
yes.
it's the speed and the weight of the dart that actually does tremendous damage to the target.
Oh, well, if I remember correct, I think it traveled at the speed of 1,700 meters per second. But that's under correction. But so it's basically speed and force.
So an FN bullet hits its target at 19 tons per square inch. That's the 7.62. So I can imagine the weight of that dart hitting some metal at that speed. It must have arrived with hundreds of tons of penetrating power.
Yeah. So it was very effective. So I was actually wet behind the ears, 19-year-old teenager that went into war with the old man. They were just a year older than me. But it was a bit intimidating because everybody were looking at me and will this young guy be up to it? And I remember the night we traveled to our first attack on the 16th Brigade. That was the 9th of November 87. And during that night, I've asked myself the questions. Will you be up to it? Because as gunner, I will have to be cool and collective and focused. The driver and the loader and so on, they can maybe lose a bit of it and so on. But as gunner, there's no second chance. So I wasn't scared to die. I was scared that I'm going to lose my cool and not be able to be calm and collective in the fights. And the questions I asked myself: are you man enough? So the whole night, that questions were running through my head, and I was just praying softly for guidance and courage to carry me through that first contact. And the next morning, we moved into our fighting positions, and yeah, it's difficult. You were trained to fire on targets, and suddenly there's people running all over, and you're not even sure if that's enemy that's running, and you get the command, you can fire. We were the first tank that made contact, and we saw some enemy in a bunker, and with a 23 millimeter anti-aircraft cannon next to it. And well, I've had the privilege to fire the first 105 round with the Olifant tank in Angola on a bunker with a 23 millimeter next to it. And just after that, our 5.2 tank made contact with two T55 tanks, and it took them out. And later, we also took out a T55 Russian tank.
So, Sarel, this is the attack on 16th Brigade, which is Fapler, I believe. They'd crossed the Lomba River, if I remember right from the book I read, and they were trying to advance eastwards towards UNITA's positions, and you guys hit them in like an open shona. Is that correct?
And that open shona was in I think in October, but we hit them basically in the trenches, between the trees and so on. Yeah.
Tell us about that first kill. What did you see? What did you feel? What was going through your head? What commands were coming from your boss man above you? What was happening there?
Now, the radio, the recording of the radio messages between the tanks is available on YouTube. I don't know if you've heard that.
No.
I'll send you that one.
Yes.
And it's amazing how calm and collective it is on the radio and so on. But inside the tank, it's quite the other story. People, you will scream and shout and so on. So the tension is quite high. And when you hit something, you will celebrate and
so who saw that first tank? Tell us a bit more details. Somebody in the tank saw the enemy tank or to take it from there.
It It was our commander,
Yeah.
and when he gave me the command to take it out, well, he reported on the radio, and then we we took it out. I can't remember clearly that specific one. A lot of the stuff happens because I think we've taken out a BTR as well, and echelon truck. I think it was a diesel bunker or something as well in that first attack. And you can't really remember in detail. What I remember very clearly is the people that we took out with the 7.62 Browning. It's quite horrific. If you hit them, by blown off their feet and flung to the ground, and it's not a nice sight.
Not at all. War is a horrible thing.
Mm.
But had you seen that tank yourself before the commander told you where it was?
No, he drew my attention to that tank. Yeah.
Okay. And so was it a first round kill, or did you have to do him twice or three times?
No, it was first round, but normally you will hit him with a second round, but the first round, FS going through. What happened if the FS hit the tank? It will make a
splinter.
A splinter, and it's a flash.
Yeah.
It's orange flash when you hit it.
Mm.
And when it takes a moment, and all the rounds inside that tank will then suddenly explode with one heavy bang. Sometimes it will throw out the tower, so that the tower will lay next to the hull. But what I've seen is the cupolas on top of the tower will be shot off and flown like frisbees for meters into the sky, and you just realize the damage. Well, the people inside can't survive that.
The Russian tanks were well known for not having their ammunition protected. It was open to any penetration of any round, any splinter, and they were basically like Ronson lighters waiting to go up. Did you have protection for your rounds? Was there an armor plate that closed around them, and you depressed it with a foot pedal or something like that?
No. If we would be in a hit, it will be basically the same story. All the rounds inside will
just cook.
Yeah.
Okay, and what part of the enemy tank would you aim for? Would you aim? You don't want to go for the front sloping armor as much as the turret. You aim for the turret?
You aim basically for the part between the turret and the hull. There is on his finished. So that will be the ideal. But if fighting at that short distances, you just hit it. If there's not really time for small measures, and you just make sure that you hit it, and then you can maybe take your time with a second round if needed.
And conversely, if the tank had seen you first, would their round have penetrated your armor?
Yeah, no, definitely. With our next fight, that was the 11th of November, 87. It was again against the 16th Brigade, because a huge part of them managed to escape on the 9th of November. We attacked them again, and I remember the whole day we couldn't make contact with them, and there was a lot of MiG fighters in the air, and we had to move into the bushes, camouflage, and so on. So we moved very slow, and about the afternoon 2 o'clock, they told us we can climb out and cook some food and stretch our legs and so on. And while busy with cooking the food on the back of the tank, we saw that there was green leaves falling out of the tree in our food, and we just heard the tip 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 in the trees, and we thought it was birds or something. Well, our tankers, we can't believe that somebody will try to shoot at us with small arms. And then we realized that it's actually bullets flying through the leaves.
Yeah.
And we've managed to scatter in the tanks and moved into fighting position. But we couldn't see anything. It's just bushes. And you can experience that with fire from the front. And they gave us the command that we should all fire one round into the bushes. And then they commanded us to move forward 50 meters. And you move forward and just pray that you will see them before they see you. And we fight again in the bushes, all 9 of our tanks. And they said we must move 50 meters in front again. And when we moved the second time, our tank hit a landmine. And well, we thought we were hit by a T55. And the tank next to us told us that we hit a landmine. It was a very loud bang. And the whole tank basically jumped. And we quickly established that all the crew members were still fine. And when the command came that we must move backwards in our tracks, but we couldn't move our tank because our track was stuck with a blast of a landmine. And in that, the enemy tanks moved forward. You couldn't see them because it's just dust and trees falling. And you will shoot in that dust column and you will see the orange flash, and you just think, and then you will see the second dust column coming forward. And I fired on that dust column as well. And the next thing is there was a tank in our blind spot on the left-hand side that we didn't see. And it fired at us under 200 meters. And by the grace of God, it missed us. But the normal drill in a situation like that, if you miss, you just fire the next round, and then you make sure it's on target. And they decided after they missed us that they are going to turn around and try to escape. And I remember they had 2 diesel drums at the back of the tank, and that tank I can remember quite clearly, that I hit from behind while trying to move away from us. And we could hear the round going basically just above our tower. It made a screaming sound like running past us, and we were just I don't want to call it lucky. I want to call it blessed.
Yeah, amen.
And I wrote a story, and maybe if somebody needs encouragement, I wrote a story about keep on playing. If you get a red card now, in rugby terms, if you get a red card, you must leave a playing field. And we basically had a red card, and luckily we decided to keep on fighting. And in the game of life, it's basically the same. You will get yellow cards and red cards, and it's your decision if you're going to throw in the tower, or are you going to keep on fighting. And I tell people never give up, because if you keep on fighting, miracles will happen, like that tank that missed us. The
Absolutely.
Lord will protect you against the stuff that you can't handle.
Amen.
And then in that situation, our buddies came with a armored recovery vehicle and pulled in at the back at us, and they jumped out of the tank and they hooked us up. And one of the guys cut our track loose with a cutting torch. So if you keep on
And,
playing and fighting,
yeah,
people will risk their lives, and friends will come up for you and come and rescue you.
yeah.
You must just never give up.
So
And
to clarify a point, did you manage to knock out that tank that shot at you and turned away?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so that was number 2.
That was number 2. Yeah.
Before we go on to number 3, this is very exciting. Did you get fired at by that 23 millimeter in the trench? And if you did you hear the rounds hitting your armor?
No, not that 23 mil.
No.
It didn't fire on us. Yeah.
Okay, because you
I
would have
can't
been
remember if it was manned or not.
right.
Yeah.
You would have been safe, but it would have made a hell of a record on your armor.
Yeah. No, for
Mm,
sure.
good Lord, eh?
For
That's
sure.
fascinating that a man would get out of a vehicle in the middle of action with a cutting torch to rescue his comrades. I mean, that's bravery, eh?
Yeah, no, for sure. No,
Brave.
for sure. The Tuffies did
Yeah,
a great job there.
amazing guys. So
Yeah.
tell us, move forward from there. Your tank's been towed back. I guess it was repaired. The Tiffies are amazing people. And then what happened from there, Sorrel?
I was picked up in our summer year, Jacques de Wet's Ratel, and he took me back to the tank, and we just had to start preparing for the next day and refuel, bomb up again, and then after that we could get a few hours sleep, and then just move on. Um,
And what were your logistics like? What were the supply lines like? Did you guys ever run out of main gun ammo or any other ammo, or were you constantly supplied?
um, Jacques de Wet was a magician. How he managed to make sure that we bombed up and filled up all the time. It's amazing. I think somebody must write a book about that,
Mm.
because the supply line were very long. I think we were, I think, about 150 kilometers from Mavinga, the airport where they brought
Wow.
up all the logistic stuff.
Mm.
But I think part of our successes were because of Dr. Wet and what he managed to do with his lorry drivers and people.
Well, the Romans eventually defeated Hannibal by attacking his supply lines. It's the only way they could defeat him. So I'm very interested in the logistics in war. And
I can just remember once. I think that was the next year, but we ran out of water and food, and I've told people that running out of food isn't that big problem,
mm,
because you reminded that you are hungry about every 3 hours,
mm,
but being thirsty is
mm,
a constant reminder that you're thirsty, and
that is
uh,
terrible.
yeah,
That's when you drink water straight through the elephant pee and dung, don't you?
yeah. No, I remember there was a rattle came through our lines. It was the plof adder. We call it a plof adder. It fires a white string across a landmine lane and explode. And the rattle carrying that thing traveled through our lines. And I realized that that rattle might have water. And I ran next to it because we got a small tap at the side of the rattle. And I ran there with my water bottle and tried to get some water, but I was tripped by a branch, and I fell next to the wheel, and the wheel just squeezed past my nose. Yeah, so
Just as well you weren't Pinocchio, or else you would have lost your nose.
yeah.
So tell us about the third experience, Sarel. It's very interesting.
Yeah, listen, Tony, it's many years ago, so I don't know. I can't remember everything, but I think the next that was now November '87. At the end of '87, E Squadron went back to South Africa, basically to finish their national service. And F Squadron, the squadron that I've started my training with, they've moved up to Angola. And well, I basically just joined them for the first part was Operation Modular. And when F Squadron came up, it was Hooper, Operation Hooper. And I joined them for Operation Hooper. And we, yeah, maybe I can tell that. I think what's also interesting about war is not only the fighting that's it's a lot of other factors that also draining you, like for instance the flies and mosquitoes. The flies is never ending story, and when at night it was the mosquitoes. And the day after Christmas, December '87, on the 26th of December, we didn't have water to wash, and it rained, and we decided we're going to have a shower in the rain. And while we were washing ourselves, the lightning were starting to hit the trees, and we moved underneath the cover. We didn't have tents. We just had basically two 4x4 meter canvases that one we put on the ground, and other one we will make basically like a small tent over the ground sheet. And we moved under the cover of that canvas, and I was standing at the side of it, and we were hit by lightning. And the lightning threw me about 2 meters away from the tent. I remember that I realized it was the lightning, and when basically the lightning left my body, well, it's basically all your muscles contracts. And when it left my body, I thought it's the life going out of me now.
Yeah.
I'm dying. And basically two of the other crew members were also hit by the lightning. It's not the main stream that hit you. It's basically some of the side streams that hit us. But on the canvas, you can see lightning streaks where it damaged the canvas. And on my body, on the left-hand side, I had red marks who looked like small lightning strikes on me, and a red line running from the top of my body to my feet. And
wow.
Emotionally, that drained me quite a lot, and I think physically as well, because just after that I contracted malaria. I've really battled, and I nearly died with malaria, and well, there wasn't helicopters or a way out, and I think that was also basically grace that the medical doctor
Mm.
managed to pull me through in the bushes. And
Mm.
now I remember we had an attack during the night. I was so confused with the malaria that I climbed out of the tank. I was standing on the engine decks at the back, basically throwing up while that fight were going on. And the next day, I was lying underneath the tank, and we were attacked by MiGs, and and they actually forgot about me underneath the tank. And eventually, when they came to see if I'm still fine, because when there was a whole commotion with a MiG that did a water bunker, they dragged me from underneath the tank, and I was totally I couldn't walk anymore. I remember they dragged me. My feet were just uh, basically hanging between the two people, and they took me to the doctor, and luckily he managed to pull me through. So it's not only the war that's basically draining you.
Yes.
It's the other stuff that's coming with the war
Yes.
that's also
Absolutely.
draining you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I remember a group of us drinking our drips. We were so thirsty. I too got struck by lightning, standing next to a water tower. And it was like somebody smacked me on top of my head, like whack. And the next thing I was on the ground. So yeah, I can empathize entirely with what you're saying. And the mosquitoes in Mozambique were legendary with you couldn't see the moon. They would just be a black cloud, you know. It's horrible, horrible. And then little Mapani flies all day trying to get up
Oh,
in your eyes, and terrible. You had to walk around with a mask on, you know. But, oh,
yeah.
dear. Yeah, it was great. Tell us a little bit more about the remaining three tanks, if you can remember them, Sarel.
Yeah, well, the middle of January, I think it was the 13th of January, we attacked the 21st Fapla Brigade. It was late afternoon. We had to move down a slope in the sand, and they've said we must turn left, otherwise we're going to miss their position. And we told the commander that the tanks can't turn in the sand. We're going to lose our tracks. And he said we must just we will have to do it, because to move a whole squadron with all the rattles and stuff, we can't go down and then move. And well, we decide we will do it, and see if we can do it in very slight movements. And three of our tanks lost our tracks in that turn. Our tank lost basically both tracks in the thick sand.
Jeez.
And we were sitting on that hill, and the sun was setting, and the rest of the tanks went on to attack the 21st Brigade. And it was amazing to see that attack from there. All the tracers running, the explosions, we could hear the sound, and so on. And we said to each other, there's no way that that everybody is going to come out there alive. And we were actually waiting for reports of own forces that didn't make it. And throughout the messages, we just heard that the attack is going well, and it's quite harsh. We could see that it's quite harsh. Here and there was tracing flying past us, and we ducked into the tank, and then later again we will crawl out and look at the attack again. And we worked throughout the night to help the other two tanks to fix their tracks, and they could move and join the squadron. And we managed to get one track on again, and then the sun came up again, and we were quite scared about the situation, sitting on top of this hill, and eventually they decide they're going to pull us down to level ground with a armored recovery vehicle. And they've just pulled us down to the lower ground, and we heard explosions, and we looked up, and where we were sitting at the top of that hill, the mortars were exploding at that stage. So we jumped in the tank, and we sat there for quite a while, just making sure that by not going to attack us again with mortars. And we just had to climb out and start working on the tracks again. And we were just starting to get into the groove of it again when there were another explosions, but then it was lower in the tree line, and this time it was that Stalin organ fired the rockets and stuff. So again we jumped into the tank and running for cover. And after that, I've told the guys we must finish this job and move out of this position, because they know we there. And I've ran to the ARV, and they didn't want to open the cupola on top of the ARV, and I shouted them and said they must come and help us. But I saw I'm not going to get help from them, and I ran back to the tank again just to find my loaded Jacques piece and our driver Marius Low already working at the tracks again. And we worked closely together with UNITA fighters, the Angola guys. And at a stage, we just see that all the UNITAs isn't there anymore. And then we hear the sound of a MiG, and we realize that they've heard the MiG long before we've heard the MiG. And when I looked up, I see it was already busy diving towards us, and I've screamed to the other two MiG, and we ran to the front of the tank, and we want to crawl underneath the tank, but it was already filled up with all the UNITA guys underneath the we had to dive within them, between them, and get a spot. And that MiG rocket exploded at the back of the tank, but close enough that one of the shrapnel took out my sights window. So, but I think the worst thing is there to get enough courage to crawl and out again and start working again to finish the job and get moving. And so that day we also had quite close calls. Another blessing to be alive to today. I've heard afterwards with that attack on the 21st Brigade, that one of the troops in the Ratels, he asked his commander if he can see the people on the white horses between the Ratels. And the commander said, no, he can't. He said, well, there's a lot of people on white horses between the Ratels.
Wow.
And in that attack, not one injury took place. That's basically almost impossible for what we've seen from the top of that hill.
That's miraculous. That is a miracle. I've heard of these things, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Praise God, man.
Yeah,
So,
but my basically my last encounter that I can remember quite clearly was, this was now the middle of January, the 14th of February 88. We attacked I think the 49th Brigade,
yeah.
Fapla Brigade, 49th Fapla Brigade. And with our squadron worked with foresight, and there were another tank squadron with 61 Mech involved in that attack. But while we were moving to the front line, I think again some elements of the 21st Brigade moved from their positions to come and help 48 or 49th Fapla Brigade. And they've decided to split our attack in two, and they've sent 61 Mech with one tank squadron to sort out those. I think it was 5 enemy tanks that moved to come and help these guys. And we worked together with foresight. We had to deal with the 49th Fapla Brigade. I remember that one of our tanks got a barrel burst just at the start of the attack.
Wow.
I assume there was a bronze or something in the barrel, and they used an explosive round, and there was a barrel burst. And in that attack, it worked something camouflage, and I couldn't see what it was. And there was a lot of bronzes also packed on the thing, and I was ordered to shoot at it with a FS round. And afterwards, I think I figured out it was a SAM, I think 14. I think it was the first one that got in Western hands.
Wow.
Luckily, I didn't. I hit the vehicle part of it, and not the electronic part of it. But by didn't. I wasn't. They weren't fond of me for shooting that SAM. But in the thick of attack, you can't make out what you're firing at. Luckily, I didn't use a Hesh round. And
Well,
just
did that anti-aircraft system have a flatbed radar on it like that?
yeah.
I read about that. It was an incredible prize for the South Africans, and even the Americans came over to have a look at it.
Yeah.
And that was something that you'd engaged. That's quite incredible.
Yeah. So presumably not something to be proud of. So yeah.
Hey, but you captured a very advanced enemy system. They should have given you a medal.
Afterwards, I've heard they want to give me a slap, not a medal for doing that. So and just after that, and that's again just grace. I've told people afterwards, there were a T55 behind basically a sand wall. I could only see the top two cupolas on the turret. And when I looked closely, I could see the cannon of a tank that just were lying on the sand in front of it. And in the heat of an attack like that, to be able to see something like that is basically impossible. I think it's also just a miracle and grace of God that I've saw that. And then I used the FS round, and it went through the sand, and it were able to penetrate the T55. It also burst into flames afterwards.
Wow, that's a
And
miraculous shot, eh?
I've just when I saw that, I've told when I had to remember my training of about 6 or 8 months ago, and I've remembered that they told me with the Evers round you can shoot through the sand and it will still penetrate, and there I've seen it for myself.
That's incredible. Because if it had been a heat round or anything else, it would have just detonated on the sand.
Just detonate in the sand, and yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. That was a bit of grace from God right there. Wow.
Yeah, I think I've sent you that photo of that T55.
Yes, some wonderful photographs you sent, yeah.
And after that, yeah, there was a tank that tried to escape, and I can remember that's the only one I've took out with a heat round, because I remember that situation by basically cut off all the trees on the base, and they built bunkers with the trees, so it was quite open, and that tank was about 300-400 meters away, and it tried to outrun us. I remember it went through a ditch, and I remember the cannon flipping, and the black smoke as it pulled out to go over the hill, and I've took it out with a heat round from the back.
And whereabouts in the tank did that round hit? In the turret or in the engine compartment?
Now, if I remember correct, I've put it on the turret again. And I can't remember if I've hit it with a second round of one of our other tanks also hit it, but yeah.
So for our uninitiated viewers, a heat round is a high explosive anti-tank, and it actually bores a hole through the metal, and a dart will sling around on the inside and just destroy everything. And
it's almost like a cutting torch, but working instantly.
Yeah,
cutting a small hole through, and when everything with it will go through that small hole.
Yeah, it's almost liquid plasma going around. It's a fearsome round, that. And then you get a HESH round. Did you have any HESH rounds?
Yeah, HESH rounds we used more on the soft skill vehicles. So if you get a truck or I once there was a Stalin or what, the BM21, if I remember correct.
Oh yeah.
Burning, and it was starting to fire everything from it, and we decided we're going to take it out, and I hit it with a HESH round so that everything exploded and it sorted out, and that was an amazing explosion.
And HESH round stands for high explosive squash head, and it doesn't penetrate. It squashes on the armor, sends a shockwave through, and all the bits on the inside just turn everything into, well, whatever.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, so yeah, and that 14th of February, after I took out that second tank, it seemed like everything went a bit quiet on the front, and there was a bunker, and I've looked at the bunker, and suddenly it must be about 15. I've told people later, I think it's about the whole soccer team that run from that bunker. And I've used my 7.62 Browning to sort them out. And it's strange. Years later, that I've talked to our driver's brother. Our driver died in China. Well, it was years after the war, and his brother. I had a meeting with his brother, and his brother told me that our driver told him that we took out those people, and he was quite traumatized about the whole situation. And it's difficult. People's in the same situation, and you experience things on different levels. At that stage, I think I was a bit. I didn't felt the emotion. I think emotionally I was cut off from reality. But for him, it was a big emotional down at that stage. And after that attack, we had to regroup and form up and get a hold of 61 Mach and the other tank squadron. The bushes were very thick, and they had quite a fight with those five T55 from the 21st squad Poplar Brigade. And I've heard afterwards that they thought we were moving in the same direction as them, and we were actually basically moving towards them. And they told us on the radio we must now be on the lookout. 61 and the other tank squadron must be just in front of us. The next moment, our tank got hit on the tower. All our smoke launchers went off, and it was just white smoke. And my sights window were also damaged for a second time. And all that white smoke from a smoke launcher were coming down my periscope into my face. And I thought it was chemical war. So I was trying to get hold of my mask. And while I was busy getting my mask, our commander gave us the command to disembark from the tank. And I didn't hear it. So eventually, when I got my mask on and my helmet on my head again, I was speaking on the mic and didn't hear anything. And when I look around, I see that I'm now the only one sitting in the tank.
Lord.
And I could hear the small fire and mortars. Mortars were exploding next to the tanks, and we were definitely. I think it was Brownings that were running. And I decided I'm not going to jump out of this tank. And the next thing, I thought about this thing that hit our tank, and I told myself that this guy, he must just make a correction, and he's going to take us out. And then I jumped out, but I forgot my radio harness, and that pulled me inside the tank again. Yes, and I had a big fall, and I took out the harness, and I jumped, and there were only two or three unitas at the back of the tank, and mortars were exploding all around us. And I saw a rattle, and I started running towards the rattle. And the next moment, I could see our lieutenant and our loader coming from the front, blood streaming from our lieutenant face, and they came back to see where I was. And afterwards, we discovered that it was our own Rattle 90s that fired at us. So they didn't realize it was us, and they thought it was enemy tanks moving towards them. And I've met the commander of that Rattle about 2 years ago, and I could ask him, because I always wondered why they didn't put a second round into the tank.
Yeah.
And he told me the moment when he saw the white smoke, he realized it was basically our own forces, and he gave a command that they must stop firing at us.
Well,
So that saved our life. So
would
the
would
rattle around went through the smoke launchers and into the turret, and he ricocheted.
I was going to ask you if it had been a clean direct hit. Do you think that round would have gone through your turret, or?
Well, they penetrated T55s with a Rattle 90s.
Wow.
It's a very thick part of the turret, but I think if it didn't went through, I think with a shockwave or something, it would have been very close to me. I don't think I would have made it.
Wow.
And it's inches, you know. On his side, he just had to go down a few inches, and he would have been solid on our turret, or between the turret and the hull.
Well,
So
if you take the couple of inches your side and transfer that back to where he fired from, it was literally a millimeter that made all the difference at your end. Unbelievable. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Good Lord. According to my maths, that's 4 tanks. But you know, if you don't remember the other one,
I can't really remember the third tank. I would have to get hold of our because I've seen photographs that was taken in December 87, and on the barrel, if we take out the tank, we will put on a orange ring, and on that photograph is 3 orange rings on our barrel.
Right.
And in this fight, I took out two other tanks. We didn't count the other tanks, but well, we assume it was tanks. On that day, we hit the landmine because it wasn't confirmed. So yeah,
you'll know one day, I guess. Do you have any other your combat stories are very interesting, and as it's a military channel, do you have anything else in your recollection that you'd like to talk about, or do you feel you've told us what you want to tell us?
yeah, I think yeah, I've ended. Maybe I could end up with we went home from Angola after Ops Hooper. It was first Modular and then Hooper, and then when later in 88 we came back to the western side of Angola, and we had Ops Excite, where we worked with 61 Meg, and Fidel Castro sent his, I think it's his 50th division,
Yeah.
tanks to come in and attack us. down there. What happened is they told us we're just going into Angola and we must just protect the rest of the elements and the artillery guys. What they've done is they've sent up helium balloons with foil covered on it. So I think, if I remember correctly, they've flown from on the border with our fighting jets, and then they've sent up this helium balloons with a foil, and the SAMs, the radar picked up the foil, and they fired with the SAM, I think SAM 7s on that the helium balloons, and normally the SAMs would be in the center command position. And I remember that day when we fired, it was a Sunday afternoon where we fired on that helium balloons. You can see the yellow line from the bushes, so they could see exactly where they are. And they hit them with the G5 cannons. And the next day we just hanged around, and I was having a bath and washing myself when about 7 kilometers from us, our 6-1 Rattles made contact with Fapla forces. And I had to scatter and throw everything onto the. I jumped in the tank with only my underpants on. My tank overall I throwed it in and it got stuck, and I couldn't pull it on. And I've told the people afterwards, if they hit us that day, I would have gone to heaven with only my underpants on. But it was that was a very long day for us, because we, after the attack, I think they took out 2 of our Rattles, and 1 was damaged, but I think they left 1 and they could recover 2 of the Rattles that was hit. And then we made contact with them, and it was basically 33 Russian tanks against, I think we were only 9 Centurion tanks. So we had to wait, make contact with them, stop them, and then move back again for a while, and then stop again, wait for them, make contact with them, stop them. And we played that game basically the whole day from the morning. And later that afternoon, we heard the mix that ran down and they hit the bridge where we were supposed to go over. And one of our guys went to inspect the bridge, and they told us that it's impossible for us to drive across the bridge with our tanks. And the other problem we've had is we were running short on fuel, and there were a low water bridge about 70 kilometers from there. And one of the decisions they made in Pretoria at headquarters was we must drive with our tanks into the river, and then, well, I assume swim across the river. But I'm not a good swimmer, and I don't like crocodiles. So eventually, when they told us that is the option, we told our commander we rather take on the enemy tanks than to leave our tanks there. And eventually, they decided we are going to run and see if we can get to the low water bridge. And luckily our diesel made it. And I remember it was late afternoon when we crossed that bridge. But we also monitored the political situation and so on. So we knew that was the final stages of war. And when we managed to cross that bridge, we know it's the end of our war, and we were very lucky to not be have to take on that 50th Brigade of tanks from it was basically Cuba's best, well, according to them, the best of the best. And I believe that if we would have won that fight, but I think we would have lost at least 2, 3, or maybe 4 of our tanks. It would have been a sad situation.
Absolutely.
So, that evening, I was in tears, but a lot of other people were also. So our tankers, sometimes we cry next to our tanks as well.
And did you manage to knock out any of those Cuban tanks? Did you know what the final tally was?
I'm not sure. I think we took out 1 or 2, but not many. I remember that I saw one of their vehicles, and I can't remember what it was called. It was a soft skin vehicle. It almost looked like our Rattles. The Cubans were sitting on top of us. I think it is a BTR or BRDM.
A BTR 80, I think, or a BDRM, one of the two.
Yeah. And but we couldn't manage to get permission to take it out because they were scared it was own forces. And eventually, when we got the command to take it out, the tank next to us took that one out. But I don't, if I recall correctly, I think it might be 2 or 3 of their tanks that got shot out that day.
Sarel, we've reached the maximum point that we like doing one interview on, which is about an hour and 20 minutes. I think in closing, I know that from what you said, you're a Christian man. If you could very briefly just tell me how you've come to reconcile war with your Christian beliefs, because some people might say, well, you were a Christian, how could you have done those things? How have you come to live with the peace in your heart that you've obviously got now?
Tony, for me personally, I've told you now a few extracts of the context and the difficult situations I've been in. The first contact was basically my easiest contact, but that specific contact, I just felt that something happened there that I can't explain. And then years later, when I managed to discover my core values. Now, my core values is compassion and to make a difference in people's lives. Now, if you look at what happened that day, the 9th of November, is basically my inner being were raped because I was in a war. It was against what God made me to be. He made me somebody who cares, somebody with compassion, and somebody who makes a difference in people, not somebody who kills and make war. So yeah, that was very difficult for me. I went back to Angola in 2018 on an Angola tour, and I've met Carlos Chetukumbi in Angola, and he was a member of a 49th Brigade that we fought against that 14th February. And I could listen to his stories and what he experienced. And he told me that his best friend lost his leg in that attack, and he lost a lot of his friends in that attack. And we had lengthy discussions about what happened. And eventually, when we were standing on the Coetzee Bridge, with the red poppies in our hands, I've asked him if he will forgive me for what I've done. And he then came and he took the poppies from my hand, and he gave his poppies to me. And he told me, now you remember my friends, and I will remember your friends. So in that moment, I've made peace. It's something that happened that I didn't plan, and yeah, I didn't speak about this for 27 years to nobody. And but speaking and telling the story, and as I told you, being a tank ace isn't an achievement. It's basically, I'm very humbled to be able to tell the story because of God's grace. So I could see the Lord's hand and how He protected me. That rattle 90 that hit us, that smoke launchers on a big tank like that. It was smoke launcher, and that actually saved our life. So a lot of miracles. So I went back to Angola to basically find my own footsteps, but walking there and remembering what happened there, I actually discovered God's footsteps where He carried me.
Absolutely, I truly believe that. I'm really fascinated by angelic appearances in war. You know, the white horses between the rattles. I really believe that. There's no doubt. It happened in the war against Israel from Syria. They saw all sorts of things. A truly fascinating talk, and the end is really quite humbling. And thanks to the Lord that we're still breathing air, and you know, by His grace. Sarel, I can't thank you enough for this talk. It's been a real blessing. I just love talking to our South African comrades in arms, and it's been a wonderful talk. And thank you for having the desire to come forward and talk and share these very personal things with us. I just want to thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a million, Tony. And now the challenge for us who survived the war is to make a difference.
Absolutely.
And impact our children and our grandchildren, and impact the people around us, and make a difference.
Yeah, tell them the good news, because time is short. Yeah. So thank you very much indeed, my brother, and God bless you, and all the very best to you and your family. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you, Tony. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.